Welcome back. The Harmony program aims to make a difference by providing underserved New York City children with training in the art of classical music. As the program continues to grow throughout the school year, the program will triple the number of students it serves, expanding from 1,000 to an estimated 3,000 students. Founder and executive director of the Harmony program, Anne Fitzgibbon, joins me to discuss. Anne, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Now, can you tell us about the beginnings of the Harmony program?
Sure. I started the Harmony program many years ago. I was working in the New York City Mayor's office. And while I was working on education policy, I became aware of how many kids across the city never had the opportunity to learn to make music. And having been a musician myself, I had an idea and I created a pilot project that brought talented musicians into communities providing young kids with instruction.
Now, can you talk about like maybe what year? And we talked about how it's just grown. So can you talk about maybe from like maybe that first year to where it is now?
Yeah, well, I planted the earliest seed when I was working in the New York City Mayor's office. That was in the early 2000s. I had a seminal year I spent in Venezuela studying a famous youth orchestra system they have there. They just call it El Sistema. And that's really what helped define the organization the way it exists today, really prioritizing social change through music, reaching kids in need, and opening up a world of music to them.
Now, you said something that I thought was so interesting in opening social change. Would you say that's possibly maybe the overall goal and the mission of the program? And I don't know, I think it's beautiful using music as a way to do that. Can you talk a little bit more about that and that overall mission?
Sure. Well, what we're doing as an organization is providing this musical training with the goal of helping kids not only discover a lifelong love of music, but also to discover through their musical training some of the habits and the skills that we know are going to support their academic achievement, their healthy social development, and lead to lifelong success.
Now, what was the significance of having children specialize in music, but specifically classical music?
Yeah. Well, I think people don't often understand how broadly relevant musical training is and how it supports the learning process. Kids learn to listen to one another and focus and persist and collaborate. So that's all that comes from some of the rigorous and formal training that they get. We want to make sure that they're not just listening to other people make music, but they learn to read music themselves. They learn the technique on their instruments and to make music with others. And from there, once we give them a firm foundation, they can discover whatever genre of music they want to explore in the future.
Now, I think I've worked with children in the past, and it's fun, but it can be difficult. So how did you manage teaching children how to play these instruments that are so challenging and so there's just a lot. Like I think like the violin is like a really hard, interesting instrument to learn. So how did you conquer that?
Well, you're reminding me of some of the early days when I can recall an early class of cello students who ran up and down the hallways dragging these expensive instruments behind them. But the beauty of it is that in really short order, after just a week or two of classes, those same kids are learning proper bow holds and positions, sitting, paying attention to their teachers. We scaffold the instruction so that little by little, children are learning these skills. And by doing that, by overcoming something that seems really daunting, they prove to themselves that they're able to do hard things. And that's a lesson we want them to carry with them.
Now, what can participants expect from the program?
So young people come to us with little or no prior experience studying music, and that's great. We love to be the first ones to have the joy of giving them an instrument. They'll have a small group class, usually no more than about 10 or 15 kids. And after a year of instruction, they will participate in our free summer camp. So we provide year-round instruction. And after about their second year of lessons, we'll encourage them to join one of our ensembles because that is the goal and the reward, to make music with their friends.
And can you talk about those ensembles?
Yeah, so this is something we're really excited about. Over the last 16 years, we've been building these local instructional programs, but we want every child in the organization to have the opportunity to be a part of an ensemble, which is the most fun part of making music. So we're committed to creating a borough-based system of what we're calling youth orchestras, but they'll be choirs, it might be a drum bugle corps, youth orchestra, string orchestra. So all of our kids have the joy of sitting within an ensemble and making music with others.
Now, is this the Bronx-based creative ensemble that we're talking about?
So we've already created 2 youth orchestras in Manhattan. And then we have young people in the Bronx that we're gathering by the end of this year into a string orchestra. So if there are listeners who have some experience on a string instrument, I would really encourage them to visit our website, find out about our summer camp, and find out about the ensemble too.
Now, what I think is really amazing about this program is that when it comes to classical instruments, these classes are usually very expensive. Could you just talk about, the importance of having this available and accessible to students in areas like the Bronx?
Absolutely. So we're all about access. It's why I founded the organization. It was to bring this opportunity to kids who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford a music program. So we provide the young people with their instruction. We provide them with the instrument for as long as they're in the program. And we know that often people's financial circumstances are the reason they can't access an opportunity like this. So we make all of our services available to our young people free of charge.
Now, what are some of the long-term benefits of participating in a musical program like this one?
I love an opportunity to talk about this. There is some fascinating neuroscience research out there about the connection between the music and the brain, between music and the brain. And what we know is that music engages every known part of the brain. It helps develop executive function, memory, physical dexterity, language acquisition, emotional regulation. I could go on and on. There is nothing bad and everything good about the study and performance of music. And I feel like parents need to understand this so that they demand this of their school and community leaders.
Now, do you have possibly any stories of maybe a child who, maybe transformed from the beginning of the program towards the end?
Oh, so many. I can remember a little girl in Harlem who said she wanted to study the trumpet so she could hear herself, she said. And a couple years later, she was the winner of our little concerto competition, and there she was standing center stage playing with an orchestra of her friends. Other of our students have come into the program, many of them very shy. They develop a sense of self-confidence and have gone on to be teachers, performers, even working in the music industry.
That's amazing. Now, I wanted to touch on the confidence and the self-esteem. Can you expand on that a little bit more? Because I think it's also so important that this is being instilled in children at a very young age.
Yeah, one of the best things that music does for young people is it helps them to learn the practice of breaking down something challenging into small, manageable components. That could be a line of music, a measure of music, note by note. And as kids learn to do this, they learn that as long as they focus and persist when something is difficult, they're capable of achieving. And again, that's something that they can carry with them long after they're in the Harmony program.
Now, I'm curious to know, what got you into music in general? Did you have a similar background? Like, did you start as a child? Like, what kind of sparked that love for music for you?
Well, I came from a family where music was really important. My dad was a public school superintendent, so he was a huge believer in education and music education in particular. My sisters and I all played musical instruments, and it was a source of so much joy for me that was really at the root of my founding the Harmony program. It was to help share with other young people what I enjoyed as a kid, and I still enjoy to this day. I'm a clarinetist and an aspiring guitarist.
Now, I want to talk about how, like, in education, music programs, and sometimes just the arts in general, don't get as much love as maybe some of the other academic subjects in school, which are obviously very important. But could you talk about maybe why people should look into kind of supporting the arts in education, especially in public school education?
Well, I've done this work for 2 decades now, and what I've realized is often we have school leaders and community leaders that themselves have not benefited from music education, and I worry that they don't understand maybe how fundamental music can be to the learning process, and that's why conversations like this are important to have. And I find that I'm spending more of my time as an advocate trying to share the importance. So all that the young people need to understand is how much fun it is, but for the adults making decisions about our young people, how they spend their time and what goes into their education, we need to understand how important an opportunity music education is.
Now, I mentioned earlier that the program went from having 1,000 students to an estimated 3,000 students. Can you just talk about that? That's a lot, one. But also congratulations, because that means that there's a need and a want for this. Can you just talk about kind of rapidly growing and, what do you hope to see for the future of the program?
Right. Well, there's been a lot of momentum that has come after a lot of hard work, a lot of lean years where we would go into communities asking for an opportunity to show them what their young people could do. And really it is just about opening those doors. So now there's almost like after we have a network established already within these communities, within the community of teaching artists and educators, more people are asking for this. So it kind of has a multiplier effect. The young people in our program bring their siblings in the subsequent years. As we're in a school and one class gets access, then the principal wants more classes to have it. So that's really what's happening, and we're hoping that people will continue to spread the word.
Now, what advice do you have for parents who, hear about the program and feel like this is something that they want their child to get into, especially if maybe the child doesn't know they have an interest in music yet?
So I'm sorry, the question is, how do you get parents to?
Yeah, what advice do you have for parents who like want their child to be in this type of program?
Yeah, well, I think that it's such a valuable experience for any child, and I think we're too quick sometimes to judge our own musical capacities. Adults will hear what I do for a living, and the first thing they say is, "Oh, I'm not musical. I have no ear." But everyone is musical. And especially for young people, when we have little kids in a room and you have an instrument within reach, they can't wait to get their hands on it. So I say to parents, be vocal about it. Contact us. If we're not the right fit for your child or your community, we'll help you find somebody who is.
Now, what are the requirements needed to participate in the program? So, what are the ages, possibly what schools, and things like that?
Well, we want to bring music where it's needed. So if you're a school or a community where you don't have this kind of opportunity, we'd love to hear from you. We target primarily elementary and middle school children. And again, they don't have to have any prior experience studying music, just a lot of enthusiasm.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and talking about this. I love to hear that children from the Bronx and from, communities like the Bronx have access to classical music. And it could honestly pave the way for a really beautiful just relationship with music and possibly even a career. So, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing and for joining us to talk about it.
Thank you for speaking with me.
If you would like to learn more about the program, please go to their website at www.harmonyprogram.org. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Open after this.